Revenge with Karen.
This is Revenge with Karen. Before we jump in, I'll just say this. Every day I'm reminded how unexpected people can be.
Nice.
All right, let's get into the story.
I knew things were off when I found the receipt for $12,000 ergonomic consultation that took place at a gentleman's club in Vegas called the Velvet Gavel. You know, the kind of place where the consultants don't usually have CPAs, but they do have a remarkable talent for defying gravity on a chrome pole. My name is Janine. I'm 42. I live in a shoebox in Tribeca that costs more than my parents' house in Denver. I have the personality of a sniper rifle, cold, precise, and usually pointing at something you're trying to hide. I'm an internal audit specialist at Hunter Tech. Sounds boring, right? That's what they bank on. They think I'm just the lady in the beige cardigan who makes sure the interns aren't stealing toner cartridges. They think I'm part of the furniture. But here's the thing about furniture. It's in the room when you're talking about the bodies you buried. Hunter Tech is one of those companies that tech bros worship. We make enterprise-level optimization software, which is corporate speak, for we charge you millions to tell you to fire your middle management. The CEO, Marcus Thorne, is a guy who looks like he was 3D printed from a composite image of every frat president who ever got away with a DUI. He's got the teeth, the tan, and the terrifying belief that rules are just suggestions for poor people. By the way, if you're into stories about corporate sociopaths getting absolutely dismantled, do me a favor and click subscribe. It helps the algorithm know that we prefer justice served cold, unlike the lukewarm office coffee I'm currently drinking. Thanks, you're the best. I've been at Hunter Tech for 7 years. In that time, I've saved them about $40 million by catching legitimate errors, double payments, vendor overcharges, the usual logistical drift. Good at my job. I have a photographic memory for numbers. If I see a variance of 0.04% in a quarterly report, it itches behind my eyes until I scratch it. Marcus calls me the librarian when he thinks I'm not listening. He thinks it's an insult. He forgets that librarians are the gatekeepers of information, and information is the only thing that actually matters. The atmosphere at Hunter Tech is what I call curated toxicity. Have nap pods, kombucha on tap, and an open-plan office designed to maximize collaboration and minimize privacy. Everyone smiles with too many teeth. It's a Shark Tank where everyone is pretending to be a dolphin. My office is technically a glass cube near the elevators, perfectly positioned so I can see who comes and goes. I see the 2 p.m. panic attacks. I see the assistants crying in the stairwell. And I see the expense reports. Oh, God, the expense reports. Usually, the C-suite is smart enough to hide their dirt. They have shell companies, offshore accounts, layers of plausible deniability. But Marcus had gotten lazy. That's the problem with narcissists. Eventually, they start to believe their own marketing. He thought he was untouchable because the stock price was hovering at an all-time high, and Forbes had just done a fluff piece on his morning routine, which definitely involved more Adderall than meditation. It started on a Tuesday. I was running a routine compliance check on the Q3 marketing budget. Hunter Tech had supposedly spent $4 million on brand awareness initiatives in Southeast Asia. Now, I know our marketing strategy. We don't target Southeast Asia. We target bloated American healthcare conglomerates. Why were we burning cash in Thailand? I pulled the ledger. The transactions were sloppy. Round numbers. Spends exactly $50,000 and 0 cents on consulting services. Real life has taxes. Real life has fees. Real life has cents. Round numbers are the fingerprints of a liar who's in a hurry. I dug deeper. The vendor was a company called Apex Solutions, LLC. I ran a quick background check. Apex Solutions didn't have a website. They didn't have a LinkedIn presence. Their registered address was a P.O. box in a strip mall in Delaware that also housed a We Buy Gold store and a vape shop. I sat back in my Herman Miller chair and took a sip of my lukewarm water. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. This is the part people don't understand about auditors. We don't get scared when we find a discrepancy. We get excited. It's like finding a loose thread on a cheap sweater. Just want to pull it and watch the whole thing unravel. I started cross-referencing Apex Solutions with Marcus's travel itinerary. Perfect match. Every time Marcus was scouting new markets, Apex Solutions sent an invoice. Bangkok, Macau, the Cayman Islands. It wasn't just consulting either. There were line items for logistical support that cost more than a Honda Civic. I printed everything. Not to the network printer, I'm not an amateur. Have a personal laser printer at home. But for this, I used the old jagged machine in the basement archives that isn't connected to the main server logs. I printed stacks of spreadsheets, invoices, and travel logs. I put them in a plain manila folder. I wasn't going to blow the whistle yet. That's rookie behavior. You don't shoot at the king unless you have a nuclear warhead. I was going to follow protocol. I was going to be the good, diligent employee. I was going to give Marcus the rope. I drafted an email to the CFO, a spineless jellyfish named Greg who spent more time picking out his ties than looking at the balance sheets. The subject line was innocuous: Q3 marketing variance query. The body was polite, professional, and absolutely lethal if you knew how to read between the lines. I asked for clarification on the Apex Solutions vendor. I asked for the deliverables. Can't seem to locate the contract or the work product for these payments, I wrote. Could you point me in the right direction so I can close out the audit? I hit send. Then I waited. In the corporate world, silence is a frequency. You learn to tune into it. The silence that followed my email wasn't the silence of I'm busy. It was the silence of a bomb squad staring at a red wire. 2 days later, I got a calendar invite. Not from Greg, from Marcus. Meeting Q3 review/comp discussion. Location, the penthouse office. Comp discussion, that's code for money. It was annual review season. I was due for a significant bump. I'd led the team that cleaned up the European acquisition mess. I was expecting at least a 15% raise and a fat bonus. I put on my best blazer, the charcoal one that makes me look like I prosecute war criminals, and took the elevator to the top floor. The penthouse smelled of rich mahogany and fear. Marcus was sitting behind a desk that was large enough to land a helicopter on. He didn't stand up when I walked in. He didn't smile. "Janine," he said, gesturing to a low chair that was designed to make you feel like a toddler. "Thanks for coming up." "Happy to be here, Marcus," I lied. My voice was level, calm. The voice of the librarian. "Look, let's cut to the chase," he said, leaning back and clasping his hands behind his head. A Rolex the size of a hockey puck glinted on his wrist. "Greg forwarded me your email about, what was it? Apex Solutions," I corrected, just trying to clear up some documentation gaps. Right, minor stuff. Greg's handling it. It's a legacy contract, very hush-hush R&D stuff. You know how it is. Next-gen algo development. We keep the paper trail thin for IP reasons. Bullshit. Absolute, unadulterated bullshit. You don't expense R&D through marketing budgets, and you don't pay vendors in Delaware strip malls for next-gen algos. Understood, I said. I'll still need the documentation for the SEC filings, though. Sarbanes-Oxley is pretty strict about. He cut me off with a wave of his hand. Don't worry your pretty little head about the SEC, Janine. Legal has it covered. Pretty little head. Air in the room didn't change temperature, but I felt a glacier form in my chest. He just realized he made a mistake. He just didn't know it yet. "Now," he said, shifting gears about your review. He picked up a single sheet of paper. He glanced at it, then tossed it across the desk toward me. It slid across the polished wood and stopped at my fingertips. "We're having a tight year," Marcus said, his eyes dead flat. "Capital expenditures, market volatility, usual headwinds. We're freezing all senior-level raises. No bonus this year, Janine, and frankly, I've been hearing some noise about your collaborative style. Some people feel you're a bit too focused on the weeds and missing the forest." I looked at the paper. 0% increase. Rating meets expectations. I looked back at him. He was smirking. It was a microscopic smirk, but I saw it. This wasn't about the budget. This was a warning shot. "Stop digging, or I will bury your career." "I see," I said. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't ask for clarification. "Is that it?" Marcus asked, looking slightly disappointed. He wanted a fight. He wanted me to beg. "That's it," I said. "I understand the situation perfectly, Marcus. Thank you for the feedback on my collaborative style. I'll act on it immediately." "Good," he said, turning back to his 3 monitors. "Close the door on your way out." I walked out of the penthouse. I walked to the elevator. I pressed the button for the lobby, not my floor. I needed an espresso, and I needed 5 minutes of fresh air to process the fact that I was about to burn this entire building to the ground. He thought he had silenced me. He thought no raise was a leash. He didn't realize he had just handed me the match. Tight budget, I whispered to myself as the elevator plummeted. I knew for a fact he had expensed a $4,000 bottle of cognac the night before. Game on, you cheap suit. There's a specific kind of rage that comes from being told you're incompetent by someone who can't convert a PDF. It's a cold, hard knot in the stomach that doesn't go away with deep breathing or yoga. Marcus hadn't just denied me a raise, he had insulted my professional existence. Missing the forest for the weeds. The audacity. Weeds are where the snakes live, Marcus, and I'm the gardener. I went back to my glass cube and did exactly what I said I would do. I acted on his feedback. I stopped doing my job. Well, I stopped doing the job he thought I was doing. I stopped nagging the marketing interns about receipts for bagels. I stopped correcting the sales team's mileage logs. I cleared my calendar. If Marcus wanted me to look at the forest, I was going to map the entire ecosystem. I started staying late. Not 5:30 p.m. late. I'm talking janitorial staff knows your coffee order late. The building changes at night. The hum of the servers gets louder. The lights dim to an energy-saving glow that makes the hallways look like the set of a horror movie set in a dystopian IKEA. I needed access to the raw data. The general ledger, GL, is the Bible of any company, but the GL Marcus let us see was the edited version. I needed the Apocrypha. I needed the raw SQL dumps from the procurement system before they were sanitized for the quarterly reports. Accessing that level of data requires authorization I technically didn't have anymore. But here's a funny thing about corporate IT security. It's usually designed to keep hackers out, not to keep trusted employees from looking sideways. I still had my super user status in the legacy ERP system because nobody ever bothers to update permissions on software from 2015. I logged in. The interface was clunky, gray text on a blue background, but it was beautiful. It was the truth. I started pulling threads. Apex Solutions was just the tip of the iceberg. I found a cluster of vendors with names that sounded like randomly generated sci-fi factions. Orion Logistics, Vanguard Holdings, Nebula Consulting. All of them paid in round numbers. All of them approved by Marcus or his CFO, Greg. But then I found something worse. It wasn't just embezzlement. That's pedestrian. Any greedy executive can buy a boat on the company dime. This was stock manipulation. HunterTech's stock price was driven by our proprietary AI growth, claimed to have developed a machine learning algorithm that could predict supply chain disruptions with 99% accuracy. That was the product. That was why our stock was trading at $200 a share. I looked at the R&D spend. The millions of dollars supposedly going to server farms and data scientists. It was being funneled into these shell companies. And the product, the code base, I checked the repository logs. Hadn't been a significant commit to the core engine in 8 months. The software was a shell. It was a glorified Excel macro with a pretty dashboard. The AI was smoke and mirrors. They were faking the growth metrics. They were buying their own product through shell companies to inflate revenue figures, pumping the stock, and then cashing out their options. I felt bile rise in my throat. This wasn't just stealing from the company. This was fraud on a massive scale. Pension funds held our stock. Teachers' unions. Regular people trying to retire. Marcus was building a golden parachute out of their life savings. My screen blurred. I realized I hadn't blinked in minutes. Then an email pinged. 11:45 p.m. From HR no reply subject. Update on organizational structure. I opened it. A company-wide blast sent in the middle of the night to minimize immediate backlash. Standard coward tactic. Team. An effort to streamline our compliance operations and foster a more agile culture, we are restructuring the internal audit department. Effective immediately, the team will report directly to the Office of the General Counsel. We believe this synergy will allow for greater harmony. They were stripping my department's independence. By moving us under legal, they could shield everything we found under attorney-client privilege. It was a gag order disguised as a reorg. And then the kicker. A second email just to me. From Jessica, an HR subject. Your new role, hi Janine, per the new structure. Your role is transitioning to Senior Compliance Analyst. You will no longer have direct access to the Level 4 financial systems. Please hand over your admin tokens to IT by end of day tomorrow. Let's focus on team harmony and moving forward. She included a smiley face emoji. Smiley face, while demoting me and stripping my tools. I looked at the timestamp. They knew I was digging. They monitored the server logs. They saw me pulling the raw data. This was the immune system of the corruption attacking the virus. I was the virus. I printed the email. I added it to the folder. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from adrenaline. They thought taking away my admin token would stop me. They thought demoting me would make me quit. Opened my desk drawer and pulled out a burner flash drive I kept for emergencies. I initiated a download of the entire raw SQL database. It was terabytes of data. It would take hours. I sat there in the dark, watching the progress bar crawl. 1%, 2%, harmony, I whispered to the empty room. I'll give you harmony. The cleaning crew came in around 2 a.m. A nice guy named Hector who always hummed while he vacuumed saw me staring at the screen, the blue light reflecting in my glasses. Late night, Miss Janine? He asked, pausing his vacuum. Inventory, Hector, I said. Just taking stock of what's trash and what's valuable. Everything okay? Everything is perfect, I said. Just cleaning house. The progress bar hit 100% just as the sun started to bleach the sky over the Hudson. I pulled the drive. I put it in my bra. Yes, it's a cliché. Try pickpocketing an angry woman in a blazer there. Good luck. I walked out of the building. The security guard, sleepy-eyed, nodded at me. Have a good night, Janine. It's morning, Earl, I said. Brand new day. I didn't go home. I went to a 24-hour diner on 8th Avenue, ordered scrambled eggs I didn't eat, and stared at the flash drive sitting next to the salt shaker. I had the gun. Now I needed to find someone to pull the trigger, because if I tried to do this internally, I'd be fired for gross misconduct and sued into oblivion before lunch. I needed the big guns. I called in sick the next day. I have nearly 6 months of unused sick leave because I'm the kind of idiot who works through the flu because quarter end waits for no virus. Well, today I was sick. Sick of them. My apartment became a war room. I pushed my dining table against the wall and covered it with printouts. I live in a minimalist space, lots of beige, lots of sharp angles. But now it looked like the inside of a conspiracy theorist's brain. Red marker, post-it notes, highlighters. I had to build the map. Data without context is just noise to a jury. I needed to tell a story. Chapter 1, the setup. Marcus creates shell companies. Chapter 2, the siphon. Money moves from Hunter Tech to shells for fake services. Chapter 3, the wash. Shells pay consultants. Marcus's personal debts, lifestyle. Chapter 4, the pump. Hunter Tech records fake revenue from other shells to inflate growth. It was a classic Ponzi structure wrapped in Silicon Valley buzzwords. I worked for 36 hours straight. I drank enough espresso to vibrate through walls. My cat, Ledger, yes, I named my cat Ledger, shut up, sat on the table watching me with judgmental yellow eyes. He knew something was off. Usually, home at 7 p.m., we watch a documentary, and I go to bed. Now I was pacing around in sweatpants, muttering about revenue recognition principles and Sarbanes-Oxley Section 404. I found the smoking gun in a buried subfolder of the leaked drive. It was an email chain between Marcus and the CFO, Greg. Subject, the gap from Greg Marcus. We're short on the Q3 projection by about $12M. If we miss, the stock tanks. Liquidity event is next month. What do we do? From Marcus, trigger the Orion contingency. Invoice the licensing fee for the Asian expansion. We can write it off next year. Just make the number hit. Trigger the Orion contingency. It sounded like a bad spy movie, but it was actually a felony. They were fabricating $12 million of revenue out of thin air to keep the stock price up so they could sell their personal shares. I stared at the screen. This wasn't just unethical. This was federal prison. This was Martha Stewart, but without the charm. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Janine, we missed you at the transition meeting today. Legal needs your laptop for the update. Please bring it in by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Jessica, HR, they were getting nervous. They wanted the hardware. They wanted to wipe it. I typed back, flu, contagious, will bring when fever breaks. I turned off my phone. I needed insurance. If I went to the SEC, it would take years. They would open an investigation, Hunter Tech would lawyer up, bury them in paper, settle for a fine without admitting guilt, and Marcus would retire to a yacht in the Mediterranean. No, I didn't want a fine. I wanted handcuffs. I remembered a guy from my master's program at Columbia, David. He was brilliant, socially awkward, and had a weird obsession with forensic accounting. While the rest of us were trying to get jobs at the Big Four, David talked about joining the FBI. We all laughed. Who joins the FBI to do math? I dug through my old contacts, found an email address. dmiller@ikfbi.gov. I drafted the message. Subject, coffee. Body, David. It's Janine from Colombia. I have a problem. It involves $40 million in fictitious revenue and a CEO who thinks he's God. I have the receipts. You still in the business of hunting? I hesitated. Once I sent this, there was no going back. I would be a whistleblower. I would be radioactive. No one hires the snitch. My career, the one I spent 20 years building, the late nights, the certifications, the climb, it would be over. I would be the woman who took down Hunter Tech. I looked at the no-raise email printout taped to my wall. Tight budget year. I hit send. 10 minutes later, a reply. Meet me at the diner on 34th and 8th. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. Bring everything. Don't bring your phone. I smiled. It was a cold, jagged smile. Ledger, I said to the cat, Daddy's going to jail. I spent the rest of the night scanning documents. I made 3 copies of the flash drive. One went into my safe. One went into a hollowed-out book on my shelf, a copy of Ethics in Business, ironically. The third was in my pocket. I took a shower. I scrubbed the stress sweat off. I washed my hair. I put on my armor, a navy blue suit, a crisp white shirt, no jewelry. I looked like I was going to a funeral. In a way, I was. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the internal audit specialist. She was the executioner. You wanted to restructure, Marcus? I whispered to the glass. Let's restructure. The diner smelled of bacon grease and stale coffee, the perfume of the morning commute. I sat in a booth at the back, facing the door. David walked in at 7:02 a.m. He looked exactly the same as he did in grad school, rumpled suit, tired eyes, carrying a briefcase that looked like it had survived a war zone. He sat down without shaking hands. You look like hell, Janine, he said affectionately. I feel like a spreadsheet that's been corrupted, I replied. I slid the flash drive across the table. This isn't a smoke signal, David. It's the whole fire. Ordered a black coffee. While the waitress poured, he plugged the drive into a ruggedized tablet he pulled from his bag. He scrolled. His eyebrows, usually flat lines of indifference, started to climb. Jesus, he muttered. They didn't even try to hide the IP routing on the shell accounts. Marcus thinks he's smarter than the machine, I said. He thinks because he pays off the auditors, the math changes. But the math never changes. David looked up. This is actionable. It's messy. You have wire fraud, securities fraud, conspiracy. But if we move now, they'll shred everything. We need them to confess. We need them to commit the act while we're watching. They're doing it every day, I said, but the big one is coming. The quarterly investor call is next week. They're going to announce the Orion revenue. That's the lie that bumps the stock for their sell-off. Next week, David tapped the table. That's fast. We need a warrant. We need to build a team. You need to go back in. My stomach dropped. Go back. They locked me out. They know I know. You have to play dumb, David said. You have to go in there, hand over your laptop, and act like you're defeated. Make them think they won. If they think you're a threat, they'll delay the call or destroy the servers. We need them arrogant. We need them to feel safe. I have to apologize to him. The thought made me want to vomit. You have to survive him, David said. You do it? I thought about Marcus's face. The smirk. I can do it, I said. I'm a professional. I walked into Hunter Tech at 10 a.m. My badge still worked, which was a surprise. I went straight to HR. Jessica was there, looking perky and terrified. Janine, you're back, feeling better? Much, I said, putting my laptop on her desk. Here's the hardware. Sorry about the delay. Fever dreams, you know. Oh, totally, she said, grabbing the laptop like it was a live grenade. So, the general counsel, Mr. Sterling, wants to see you. Now, of course he does. I walked to Sterling's office. He was a slippery man with slick back hair and a suit that cost more than my education. He didn't offer me a seat. Janine, he said, standing by the window. We've had some concerning reports about your data access patterns prior to your illness. I was being thorough, I said, keeping my voice small. I just wanted to make sure everything was reconciled before the reorg. It's not your job to reconcile anymore, Sterling snapped. He turned to face me. Here is the situation. You are being placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into data mishandling. You will sign this NDA reaffirming your commitment to company confidentiality. If you speak to anyone, press, competitors, former colleagues, about internal matters, we'll sue you for breach of contract, theft of trade secrets, and defamation. We will take your apartment, your savings, and your future. Do you understand? He slid a document across the desk. It was thick. I understand, I said. Sign it. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. I signed my name, Janine A. Miller. It didn't matter. A contract signed to cover up a felony is void ab initio. David taught me that. But Sterling didn't know I knew that. Good, Sterling said, snatching the paper back. Now, get out. Your personal effects will be mailed to you. I walked out. As I passed the bullpen, the large screens on the wall flickered to life. It was a company-wide Zoom broadcast. Marcus's face filled the monitors. Team, Marcus beamed. Great news. We're heading into the investor call with record momentum. I want to thank everyone for their hard work. And a special shout out to the compliance team for streamlining our processes. He was gloating. He was taking a victory lap on my grave. I saw my former team members watching the screen, their faces blank. They knew they were scared. I walked to the elevator. My phone buzzed. A text from David. We're in. The wire is hot. Keep your head down. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, shutting out Marcus's voice. I wasn't defeated. I was a Trojan horse. And I had just opened the gates. Next 3 days were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Hunter Tech didn't just fire you, they haunted you. I noticed the black SUV parked across the street from my apartment building on Wednesday. Tinted windows, engine idling. It never moved. Every time I went to the window, it was there. A silent metal sentinel reminding me, we see you. My email accounts, the personal ones, started acting weird. Password reset requests I didn't initiate. Two-factor authentication codes pinging my phone at 3 a.m. They were trying to hack me. They wanted to know if I had leaked anything. I didn't panic. Panic is inefficient. I went to the library to check my email. I used burner phones. I drank tea. David and I met in passing at the Union Square Farmers Market. No tables, no prolonged conversation. Just two people buying overpriced kale. They're spooked, he muttered, examining a bunch of radishes, seeing encrypted chatter on their internal channels. Shredders are running overtime. Did they cancel the call? I asked, looking at a jar of artisanal honey. No, greed is a powerful drug. Marcus needs the stock bump to cover a margin call on his personal loans. He's going through with it. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Are you ready? The warrant is signed. We have a team. We're going to hit them midstream. It's going to be theatrical. The U.S. attorney wants a headline. Good, I said, make sure the cameras are rolling. Janine, David paused. If this goes sideways, if they find out it was you before Monday, they won't, I said. They think I'm broken. They think I'm sitting at home crying over my 401k. I bought the honey. He bought the radishes. We parted ways. That night, I got an email on my personal account. It bypassed the spam filter. Sender, unknown subject, friendly advice body. New York is a dangerous city. Accidents happen. Be careful crossing the street. Enjoy your retirement. Attached was a photo. It was a picture of me taken that morning walking out of the library. My breath hitched. They were following me on foot. I closed the laptop. I walked to my door and engaged all 3 locks. I wedged a chair under the handle. I wasn't scared for my life. Marcus was a thief, not a hitman. Violence brings too much heat. This was intimidation. Wanted me to be too terrified to talk to the SEC. I sat in the dark of my living room, the city lights casting long shadows across the floor. I thought about the thousands of employees at Hunter Tech who were about to lose their jobs, the innocent ones. The receptionists, the coders, the janitors. They were going to be collateral damage. Guilt is a heavy coat. I took it off and folded it away. I wasn't the one destroying the company. I was just the one turning on the lights. The cockroaches were the ones who made the mess. I pulled out my life after Hunter Tech file. It was empty. I had no plan for Tuesday. I had no idea who I would be when this was over. But I knew who I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be a victim. Sunday night, the eve of destruction. I poured a glass of wine. I opened my laptop, the clean one. I logged into the Hunter Tech Investor Relations portal. Since I owned shares, I had a legal right to watch the stream, registered under my maiden name, Janine K. The countdown clock on the screen ticked down. 12 hours to live broadcast. I slept like a baby, the deep, dreamless sleep of the righteous insane. Monday, 8:45 a.m. I sat at my dining table, coffee hot, laptop open. The stream went live. The production value was nauseating. They had rented a studio in Midtown. High-def cameras, dramatic lighting, a backdrop of digital clouds and soaring stock graphs. Upbeat techno music pumped through my speakers, the kind of music that sounds like it was written by an algorithm to induce optimism. The chat room on the side of the screen was scrolling fast. Investor Guy 88, to the moon. Crypto King, buying the dip. Tech Watch. Rumors of the Orion revenue are huge. They were sheep. And the wolf was about to walk on stage. At 9 o'clock a.m. sharp, Marcus Thorne walked out. He looked like $1 million, which was ironic, considering he was stealing 50 times that. Navy suit, no tie, crisp white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, the casual visionary look. He flashed that blinding, cap-toothed smile. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "Thank you for joining us. Today is a historic day for Hunter Tech." I took a sip of coffee. "You have no idea, Marcus." He started his slide deck. It was a masterpiece of fiction. Growth, synergy, paradigm shift. Click to the slide titled Q3 Financial Highlights. "As you can see," Marcus said, gesturing to a bar graph that shot upward like a rocket, "our revenue has exceeded expectations by 20%. This is largely driven by our breakthrough Orion initiative in the Asian markets." There it was, the lie, spoken into a microphone, recorded for eternity. The moment he said those words, the crime was complete. He had misled investors. He had committed securities fraud on a live feed. I looked at my phone. 9:08 a.m. I texted David, he said it, go. On screen, Marcus was pacing the stage, energized. "We're not just a software company," he preached. "We are an ecosystem of truth. We provide the transparency that the modern market demands. Transparency." The irony was so thick you could choke on it. And to our critics, Marcus chuckled, to those who said we couldn't scale. "Well, numbers don't lie." "No, Marcus," I said to the screen. "Numbers never lie, people do." I watched the edge of the frame. I was looking for movement. Marcus was answering a pre-screened question from a shareholder. "Great question, Steve. Yes, our retention rates are..." He stopped. His eyes flicked to the left, off camera. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. He looked confused. "I'm sorry," he said to the camera. "We have a bit of a disruption in the studio. Thought it was a PA with a coffee order or a technical glitch." He didn't see the windbreaker yet, then I heard it. Faintly, through his lapel mic. "Federal agents, nobody move." The audio engineer must have been in shock because he didn't cut the feed, or maybe he was one of the people Marcus had screwed over too. Maybe he let it roll. Marcus's face went pale. The tan drained away, leaving him looking like gray dough. "What is this?" he stammered. "You're live, get out of here." A figure stepped into the frame. A large man, blue jacket, yellow letters, FBI, Marcus Thorne, the agent barked. "Step away from the podium. Hands where I can see them." The chat room froze, then it exploded. "WTF, is this a skit?" Sell, Marcus tried to bluff. "Do you know who I am? This is a private broadcast. I'll have your badge." "You have the right to remain silent," the agent said, grabbing Marcus's wrist and spinning him around. The camera zoomed in. Not intentionally, it was on autofocus, tracking the subject. The subject was now Marcus Thorne getting his face pressed against a fake digital cloud backdrop. I saw the handcuffs click. Click, click, the most beautiful sound in the world. "Turn it off," Marcus screamed, his voice cracking. "Cut the feed. Greg, call Sterling." Another agent walked onto the stage and looked directly into the camera lens. Reached out. The screen went black, stream offline. I sat in my apartment. The silence was deafening. I put down my coffee cup. I let out a breath I had been holding for 3 years. It wasn't a cheer. It wasn't a laugh. It was just release. Then my phone exploded. The stock didn't just drop, it cratered. By 9:30 a.m., trading on Hunter Tech was halted by the Nasdaq. It had plummeted 60% in 12 minutes. Billions of dollars in market cap evaporated. My phone was vibrating so hard it was dancing across the table. Texts from former colleagues. "Did you see? OMG, Marcus arrested. Are we fired? Janine, did you know?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I turned on CNBC. The breaking news banner was blood red. They were playing the clip on a loop, Marcus's terrified face. The handcuffs, the agent. The pundits were screaming. Enron-level event. Massive fraud. Who was the whistleblower? That was the question. Who? I knew my name would come out eventually. The court documents would be public, cooperating witness one. But for now, I was a ghost. I poured another glass of wine. It was 9:45 a.m. Who cares? I was unemployed. Then a knock at my door. Not the police, not a delivery. A frantic, pounding knock. I looked through the peephole. It was Sterling, the general counsel. He looked like he had run all the way from Midtown. His tie was loose, his hair wild. "Janine, I know you're in there," he shouted. "Open the goddamn door. He shouldn't be here. He should be shredding documents or calling criminal defense lawyers." Why was he at my apartment? I left the chain on and opened the door 2 inches. "Go away, Sterling, or I call the agents who currently have your boss." "You did this," he hissed, his eyes manic. "We know it was you. The data logs, the late nights, you bitch." "I did my job," I said coldly. "Something you forgot to do. You signed an NDA," he screamed, spitting on my doorframe. "We will sue you until you're living in a cardboard box. You destroyed everything." The NDA covers company secrets, I said, my voice steady. It doesn't cover crimes. Void against public policy. Look it up. He slammed his hand against the door. You think you've won? You're unhireable. You're poison. No one touches a snitch, Janine. You're done in this town. Maybe, I said. But at least I'm not in a holding cell. Goodbye, Sterling. I slammed the door. I locked the deadbolt. My hands were shaking now. He was right. I was poison. I had nuked my own industry. No board would ever trust me again. She's the one who calls the FBI. I slid down the door until I hit the floor. I was alone. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a hollow ache. I had won, but I had also lost everything that defined me for 20 years. My status, my identity. I looked at Ledger the cat. He licked his paw unimpressed. Well, I said, I guess I'm retired. My phone buzzed again, a text from David. We got the backups. The flash drive you gave us matched the servers. It's a slam dunk. Marcus is singing. He's trying to blame Greg. Greg is blaming Marcus. It's a circular firing squad. Good work, Janine. Good work. I closed my eyes. It didn't feel good. It felt like burning down a house to kill the termites. Necessary, but you still end up standing in the ashes. I stood up. I needed to leave. I couldn't be in this apartment with Sterling banging on doors and the news trucks starting to circle. I put on a baseball cap and sunglasses. I grabbed my bag. I slipped out the back service entrance. New York City was moving as usual, taxis honking, tourists walking slow. Nobody cared about Hunter Tech. To them, it was just another headline. I walked. I just walked. Ended up in Battery Park, staring at the Statue of Liberty. A cliché, sure, but sometimes you need a big green lady holding a torch to remind you that liberty actually costs something. My phone rang. An unknown number. I answered it. This is Janine. Miss Miller, this is Sarah Koenig from the New York Times. The press had found my number. It begins. I have no comment, I said. Miss Miller, we have sources confirming you are the internal auditor who flagged the irregularities. Have the email regarding your denied raise. Is it true this started because they froze your salary? I laughed. A dry, harsh bark of a laugh. Is that the narrative? The disgruntled employee? It's a compelling angle, the reporter said. The woman who brought down a billion-dollar giant over a cost-of-living adjustment. It wasn't about the money, I said. It was about the insult. They thought I was stupid. They thought I wouldn't notice. Can I quote you on that? I paused. I want to be the no-raise lady? No, I wanted to be the truth lady. You can quote this, I said. The raise was just the trigger. The gun was loaded a long time ago. Hunter Tech was a lie wrapped in a slide deck. I just clicked end show. I hung up. I pulled the battery out of my burner phone and tossed it into a trash can. I walked back uptown. I passed an electronics store. The TVs in the window were showing the fallout. Hunter Tech CEO denied bail. SEC launches full probe. Employees locked out of HQ. I felt a pang of sadness for the employees. I really did. But then I remembered the culture at Hunter Tech. The arrogance, the complicity. How many VPs knew? How many managers signed those invoices? It wasn't just Marcus. It was a village of people willing to look the other way for bonus. I had burned the village. I stopped at a bodega and bought a pack of gum. Guy behind the counter was watching the news on a small TV. Crazy, right? He said, pointing at Marcus's mugshot. Guy had everything. Why steal? Because it's never enough, I said. You look familiar, he said, squinting at me. You work there? Used to, I said. I was the janitor. Janitor, yeah. I took out the trash. I walked out. The sun was setting. The city looked beautiful, gold and steel. I realized something strange. My shoulders, usually up around my ears, relaxed. The chronic tension headache I'd had for 7 years was gone. I was unemployed. I was likely blacklisted. I was about to be deposed by the DOJ for the next 6 months, but I was free. I had faced the monster. I had looked him in the eye when he tried to erase me, and I had erased him instead. The search was over. The find was done. Now, all that was left was the change. I wasn't Janine the auditor anymore. I was Janine the... Well, I didn't know yet. I had time to figure it out. 3 months later. The Hunter Tech liquidation is still ongoing. It's a mess. The lawyers are feasting on the carcass like vultures. Marcus is in federal holding, trading his tailored suits for an orange jumpsuit. He pled guilty last week to avoid a 20-year sentence. He got 8. He'll be out in 4 for good behavior, probably. But his reputation, dead. His assets, seized. His ego, shattered. Sterling, the general counsel, got disbarred. Turns out threatening a whistleblower is frowned upon by the ethics committee. Who knew? And me? I'm sitting in a cafe in Tribeca, the expensive one. I ordered the $16 cappuccino with the oat milk and the lavender syrup. Why? Because I can. I didn't get a raise. I didn't get a severance package. But I did get something better. The SEC has a whistleblower reward program. Did you know that? If your tip leads to a successful enforcement action, resulting in sanctions over $1 million, the whistleblower is entitled to 10 to 30% of the money collected. Hunter Tech was fined $150 million. Marcus was fined $20 million personally. Do the math. I'm good at math. The check hasn't cleared yet. Government bureaucracy moves slower than a glacier, but it's coming. And when it does, I'm not buying a yacht. I'm not buying a penthouse. I'm going to buy a small bookstore in Vermont. I'm going to name it the Audit, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life organizing books and judging people's taste in literature. My phone buzzes. It's a LinkedIn notification. Recruiter, hi Janine, I see you're open to work. We have a head of compliance role at a crypto startup. I laugh. I delete the app. No more compliance. No more startups. No more synergy. I reach into my bag and pull out a small USB drive. The original one, the one that started it all. I hold it up to the light. It's just plastic and silicon. But it took down a giant. I leave it on the table, a little tip for the busboy. Maybe he'll plug it in and learn how to dismantle an empire. Probably he'll just wipe it and put pirated movies on it. Either way, I'm done with it. I take a sip of my overpriced coffee. It tastes like victory. Moral of the story? If you're going to screw over the person who knows where the bodies are buried, make sure you pay them enough to keep digging the hole. Marcus forgot the golden rule: the help sees everything. And sometimes, the help decides to stop helping. I put on my sunglasses. I walk out into the New York afternoon. I don't have a job. I don't have a career. But I have a hell of a story for Reddit. Tight budget year, I whisper, smiling at the sky. Not for me, Marcus. Not for me.
아니 실내에서 하는 행사를 왜 가요 제가. 예. 실내에서 하는 행사를 왜 가. 그런 노잼 행사를. 그러면 오늘은 좀 이제 구내식당 가볼게. 인천에 있는 구내식당. 예, 가서 좀 밥 먹고, 아 3부가 되면 좋은데 예, 아직 좀 3부가 될지 안 될지는 잘 모르겠어요. 비가 와가지고. 예. 그 도너츠 배달을 할까 말까 존나 고민인데 모르겠네 아직은. 비 오면 또 밀어야지. 캔슬 해야지. 비 오면은 어쩔 수 있나 뭐. 이게 비 오는데 그 박스 들고 갈 순 없잖아. 도너츠 박스 들고. 그러니까 이게 도너츠 배달이 뭐냐면은 저번에 1,500개를 받았어. 예, 도너츠 그거 배달 해주라고. 근데 그때 미용실 문이 닫아가지고 도너츠 배달을 못했어요. 그래가지고